What's up everyone, David here, and as you can see I have my new setup. So I have like a desk with an L, which is pretty cool, new storage, new face for the camera. Unfortunately you don't see the shelf anymore, but hey, the Atlus stuff is right here so you can still look at the games. Hey, today I have a very cool video. We have an upcoming Vanillaware Atlus title to talk about that you might have heard of the game if you've been following me on the channel, since I'm covering this title quite a bit. 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim by, again, Vanillaware. And this game was announced all the way back at the Tokyo Game Show 2015 as a brand new title by the very unique developer that is Vanillaware. This game was already released in Japan November of 2019, and it has a September 22nd release date for us in the West, and the game will be published, of course, by Atlus. For now, the game is exclusive to PS4 in the West. And about Vanillaware, if you don't know already, they are the developer behind Dragon's Crown and the first Odin Sphere, and they're very well known for their unique art style. So when you look at the gameplay and the designs of the characters for this game, you'll know what I'm talking about. Now today I'm here to answer two questions. I want to let you guys know what is 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. So I'll get an overview of the story, the characters, the development, and also the gameplay for this title. Everything is very unique, so I'll just want to describe everything to you guys. And also I will tell you why I am excited for this upcoming title. First of all, this game is said to be a visual novel adventure type of game with a combat system that is a tower defense combat system, which is something that we don't see very often nowadays. Of course, it is not too easy to describe this title, so I read a bunch of articles and I've watched a bunch of videos from Japanese gamers, so I have a good idea of what this game is, and I'll do my best to describe it to you guys. So in this game, you play with 13 different characters, okay? And you play with those characters in a very non-linear way. And what I mean by that is that you can play the stories of all the characters at the same time, in the order that you like most of the time. Kind of like in a game like in Octopath Traveler, for example, where you had 8 characters, you decide which character you want to play their story in which order. But unlike in this game, from what I can understand, in 13 Sentinels, your characters will interact with one another. So that is one of the things that I think was missing from Octopath Traveler, and it was the interactions between characters. So at least it seems like in this title, that is solved. There is a menu screen that allows you to see the completion rate of the story for each character, which I think is super cool for someone like me who likes to complete their games and do the side stuff, all of that. To have a percentage that shows you where you're at for every single story is pretty cool. And don't quote me on that, but what I was able to understand from that particular menu screen is that you can also see at which point certain of your characters will meet together and will interact with one another. Also a pretty cool thing in my opinion. You remember how I said a few minutes ago that this game was very unique? Well, when you play the different storylines of your different characters, you get to play in 5 different time periods depending on the character that you're playing as. You're going to have some characters in the 1940s, in the 1980s, the 2020s, 2060s, and also in the 2100s, which is very cool. So the main period of time that you'll spend the most time in is the 1980s. The fantastic sci-fi story revolves around a group of high school students who are in different period of times, but in the 1980s there is a futuristic wars with aliens that are controlling mechas. So yeah, I was saying that this is very unique. It is. What I got from the Japanese reviews is that some characters that you'll play as during the 1980s are actually coming from World War II, and also from the future to fight the same evil force of the present in the 1980s. Now, I definitely want to talk about the gameplay of this game, which has to be the most unique thing about this game, in my opinion. The gameplay is a mix of turn-based tactical RPG, kind of like a game of, in similar vein of like Devil Survivor, or like a Fire Emblem title, for example, mixed with a tower defense system. From what I can understand of the Japanese version of this game, depending on how many units you deploy on the battlefield, you'll enter a different formation. So what I mean by that, let me give an example. A small team of only 4 units will offer additional HP to your characters, while deploying a 6-man unit team, it would resolve in a more offensive formation, which would give you less HP, but of course you're able to take advantage of the enemy and destroy their defenses that way. So depending on your structure, you get different bonuses. Basically, that's what that's what I understand from the title. Now, of course, classic tower defense gameplay is here for this title. The enemies are attacking in waves, and they all have different type of ways to attack. Some will use range, some will use melee. So before you move your characters and before you decide who you place where on the field, you have to think. So this is really a strategic gameplay from what I can understand, and by watching gameplay you can see that the players are taking their sweet time before they act. Like this is really a game where I feel like you'll relax and listen to the story, and in combat you'll take your time and make sure to do the right moves to succeed. I don't know how the difficulty level is yet though, but of course once I play the title I'll be able to let you guys know. But it seems like a title that will be very relaxing and really like you want to think before you move. So this is something that I really like. This is what I like from my tactical RPGs. So your units, as I said, will have different way to do attacks. There is ultimate attacks that your units can use, and I also have to mention that friendly fire is activated in this game, which means that before you do like an ultimate attack that will blast a big part of the battlefield, you want to make sure that none of your allies are there or they will get wrecked. Now, after battles, you have a results screen, but there is something like you'll probably tell me like, yeah, there's results screen in every single game where there's battle, but there's something that is a bit cool in this type of game, and this is something that we see in MMORPGs sometimes. So to have it in this single player experience is very cool. Depending on the performance of each of your units, they get a different XP rate. So for example, if one of your character did 80% of the damage to the enemy team, well, this particular unit will get more XP than the other members of your team, which I think is very cool. This is very different, and I think it will push the player to use different type of characters. Obviously, if you have a healer, you can't expect him to do as much damage, so it's not only about damage, but about their efficiency in battle. That's what I can understand as well, which for me, that's a very cool addition. If you've been following me, you know that I'm all about that music in video games. Now, what you've been hearing since the beginning of this video is the official soundtrack for 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. The composer of this soundtrack is none other than Hitoshi Sakimoto, which is well known for his work on Final Fantasy Tactics, Final Fantasy XII, Final Fantasy XII, Ogre Battle, Odin Sphere, Dragon's Crown, and much more. Now, I don't think I have to say much more. He's amazing, and his work on this upcoming title is very good. You guys can listen to the soundtrack. It's available on YouTube. Do yourself a favor and go listen to this soundtrack. It is amazing, very unique. Again, I know that this is the word that I'm using back to back in this video, but this is what comes to mind when it comes to this title. Now, it's needless to say, after listening to me rambling about this game, that I am very excited for this upcoming Vanillaware release. I pre-ordered my copy in my local game store. If you don't know already, there is a very cool pre-order bonus. If you pre-order the physical edition of this game, you get an art book. If you buy digital, which is also okay, you get the art book, the same art book, but digital. So you get to download an art book and look at the art for this game. This game is coming in less than a month. For me, it's super exciting. There's not a bunch of RPGs that are coming out in September, and this one looks particularly interesting for me, so I'm curious to hear you guys' thoughts. Will you be picking up this game? Does it look interesting to you? Will you wait for a price drop? Will you wait for the reviews? If that's the case, don't hesitate to subscribe to the channel, since I will do a review once I'm done with this title, and I will be covering this game until release, of course. So if there's any new information that comes from this release, you can count on me for coverage of this game. I hope I explained correctly my ideas about why I'm excited for 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, and I hope that you guys are also excited now that you've heard my thoughts on this particular game. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.